They say in Igbo land, Onye wetara oji, wetara ndu. He who brings kola brings life. But what happens when a dead man walks back and brings nothing but questions? Listen, because what happened in Omuna village in 1983, nobody has ever fully explained it. Not the pastor, not the dibia, not even the man himself. The year was 1963, and the air in Omuna smelt like red dust and fear. Everyone in the village knew war was coming, even if nobody said it out loud. Emeka Okafo stood at the edge of his compound with a small bag on his back. He was 26 years old, tall, and had a scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood fight. His wife, Adaeze, stood in front of him. She was 24, small but sturdy, with eyes that never cried easily. That morning, she had woken up before dawn and cooked him ofe onugu with fufu. She did not speak much while she cooked. She just moved around the kitchen like someone performing a ritual. Emeka had watched her from the doorway and felt something heavy sit on his chest. Adaeze, he had called her name softly. She turned and looked at him, and her face said everything her mouth refused to say. Outside, the village was waking up slowly. Cocks were crowing. Somewhere, a baby was crying. Obina, Emeka's best friend, was already waiting on the road with 2 other men. Emeka, oh time oh, Obina shouted from the road. It's time. Emeka looked at his wife one last time. She walked up to him, stood on her toes and kissed him on the mouth. It was not a long kiss, it was not dramatic. It was the kiss of a woman who understood that some goodbyes are permanent. She pulled back, looked him in the eye and said quietly in Igbo, "No, nulo, na ani siteni ubochi ozo. Come back home, only from tomorrow." Emeka smiled, touched her face once and turned and walked away. He did not look back. She stood at the gate and watched until he disappeared down the red road. Then she put one hand on her belly. She was 3 weeks pregnant and had not told him yet. She opened her mouth to call him back, but Obina had already rounded the bend, and Emeka was gone. She closed her mouth, she closed her eyes. She whispered, "Chukwu gozie, God bless him," and she walked back inside. Nobody knew then that it would be 20 years before that gate opened for him again. Nobody knew. And that was just the beginning of the strange part. The war came to Umuna like a flood, slowly at first, then all at once. Soldiers passed through the village. Some were Biafran boys who looked too young to be holding guns. Some were barely older than 20. Adaeze had her son Chukwuemeka. She named him after his father, the way Igbo women do when a father is absent. Everyone called the boy Chuka. He had Emeka's forehead and Adaeze's restless eyes. Letters came from the front for the first year. Emeka wrote short, careful letters, like a man choosing his words so they would not cause panic. "I am fine. I am eating. I am with Obina. We are strong." Then in 1966, the letters stopped. No warning, no last letter, just silence, like a candle that blew out without any wind. Adaeze waited. Weeks turned into months. She went to the army post in Enugu and asked about Emeka Okafo. The man behind the desk looked at his book, ran his finger down the page and said nothing for a long time. Then he looked up and said, "Madam, him name no dey here again. His name is no longer here." She asked what that meant. He looked down again. "If it mean anything," he said quietly. She understood. She walked out of that office in the hot sun and stood on the road. People walked past her. A bus honked. A woman was selling agbalamu nearby. Life just continued, the way life does, without asking permission. Adaeze did not cry on that road. She picked up her wrapper, tied it tighter, and walked to the bus stop. She had a son to raise. She had yam to plant. She had no time to fall apart in the sun. But at night, in the dark of their room, she pulled his old shirt from under the mattress and pressed it to her face. And the shirt, 20 years later, would still be there, under that same mattress. But here is what nobody knew. Emeka was not dead. He was somewhere, and wherever he was, time has simply forgotten about him. Time is not kind to people who wait. It does not slow down for them. It does not consider that someone is still holding their breath. It just moves. By 1970, the war had ended. Biafra had surrendered. Men returned to their villages, thin, limping, broken, some with empty eyes that had seen too much. Obina returned. He came to Adaeze's compound on a Tuesday afternoon, walking with a stick. His left leg had been injured. His face looked 10 years older than his age. He sat in her parlor and could not look her in the eye. "Adaeze," he said, his voice low. "Tell me," she said.
He was quiet for a long time. "We were separated," he finally said. "For the last time, I saw him for inside one bush near Aba." "He was alive?" she asked. "He was alive," Obina confirmed. "Then what happened?" she pressed. "I don't know," Obina whispered. "We run different direction. Gunshot everywhere. I find am tire. I look everywhere tire. I never see him." He covered his face with his hands. Adaeze sat there quietly. She nodded once, slowly. "Dalu," she said. "Thank you." She gave him water and food. She did not collapse. She did not wail. But after Obina left, little Chuka, who was 7 then, found his mother sitting in the backyard staring at nothing. "Mama, Odimma?" he asked. "Are you okay?" She turned and looked at her son, at Emeka's forehead, at her own restless eyes on his face, and she smiled. "Mama is fine," she said. "I'm just tired," and she went back inside to cook dinner. The years passed. Chuka grew up. Adaeze grew older. Fine lines came around her eyes. Her hair went grey early, the way some women's do when life sits heavily on them. She farmed. She traded cloth in the market. She sent Chuka to school. She did not remarry, though the pressure came. "Adaeze, you are still young," her uncle said in 1972. "The man is dead. It is time." She had looked at her uncle and said flatly, "When I know he is dead, I will mourn him. Until then, I am waiting." Her uncle never brought it up again. The village quietly called her strong. Some quietly called her stubborn. But nobody, not even Adaeze herself, was prepared for what walked through that gate in 1983.
It was a Wednesday morning in dry season, the kind of morning where everything is pale and dusty. Chuka was 20 years old now, home from the university in Nosuka for a short break. Adaeze was 44. She was in the compound, cracking ugba by the wall, when she heard the gate creak. She did not look up immediately. She assumed this was Mama Ngozi, the elder woman next door who always entered without knocking. "Mama Ngozi, I tell you make you knock before you enter," she called without raising her head. Silence. She looked up, and her hand stopped, and the ugba fell from her fingers. A man was standing at the gate. He was tall. He had a scar above his left eyebrow. He was wearing a faded army jacket that was dusty but intact. He looked 26 years old. Adaeze stood up slowly. Her wrapper almost fell. She grabbed it. She stared. The man stared back. "Adaeze," he said. And his voice, God, his voice was exactly the same, low and careful the way he always spoke. She took one step forward, then stopped. "Who are you?" she whispered in Igbo. The man looked confused. "Adaeze, na me," he said. "It's me, Emeka." The world went quiet. Not the good kind of quiet, the frightening kind, the kind that comes before something changes forever. From inside the house, Chuka came out, tall, dark, with his mother's eyes. He looked at the stranger at the gate. The stranger looked at Chuka. And the stranger's face did something strange. It folded. "Adaeze," Emeka said slowly. "Who is this man?" And Adaeze's legs began to shake, because the man at her gate, the man asking who her son was, looked younger than her own child, and nobody in Umuna slept well that night. By evening, the whole of Umuna knew. What travels in a village the way fire travels in dry grass, fast and hungry. People gathered outside Adaeze's compound by sunset. Some stood at a safe distance, some pressed against the fence to look. An old man, Mazidike, came close, squinted at Emeka's face and stumbled back. "Ebube Chukwu," he gasped, "the glory of God. Now the same face I see in 1963. Mama Ngozi arrived and pushed through the crowd. She was old now, 70, maybe older. She had known Emeka as a young man. She walked up to him slowly, looked at him hard and said nothing. She just circled him once, like someone inspecting something suspicious at the market. Then she walked back inside without a word. That silence from Mama Ngozi was the most frightening thing anyone saw that night. The pastor of the Assembly's church came and declared it a miracle. "God has preserved his servant," he shouted, clapping. 3 women said amen, but 5 other people took 3 steps back. Because miracles in Igbo land, as any child knows, do not come with a question attached. The question is always, at what cost? Inside the house, Adaeze sat on one side of the room. Emeka sat on the other. Chuka stood by the door, arms crossed, watching the man who was supposedly his father, the man who looked younger than him.
The silence between them was so thick you could cut it. Emeka looked at Adaeze, at her grey hair, at the lines near her eyes, and the confusion on his face was genuine. "How long was I gone?" he asked. Adaeze looked at him. 20 years, Emeka. Chuka is 20. Emeka looked at Chuka. "I have a son," he said softly, more to himself than anyone. "You have a son," Adaeze confirmed. "He grew up without you." "Mama," Chuka said quietly, "is this real?" Adaeze looked at the young face on the man across the room, her husband's young face on an old situation, and she had no answer. Because some things in life do not come with an answer. They just come. When the crowd outside finally scattered, Adaeze locked the gate. She sat back down and looked at Emeka. "Where were you?" she said. Not angrily, just, "Where were you?" Emeka leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. He was quiet for a while, the way he always was before speaking. "After we scattered in the bush near Aba," he began, "I ran, gunshots everywhere. I entered a part of the forest I did not know." He paused, rubbing his hands together. "I fell," he said. "I don't know from what, I just fell." "And then?" Adaeze asked. "And then I woke up," he said, "and it was quiet." "How long were you unconscious?" Chuka asked from the door. Emeka looked at him. "That is the thing," Emeka said carefully. "For me, I was only gone one night. The room went cold." "One night?" Adaeze repeated. "I woke up in that forest," Emeka said, "and I started walking. It took me weeks to find my way out. But inside me, only one night passed. Nobody spoke. The lamp flickered. When I reached the town, the people, their clothes were different. The cars were different. I saw a newspaper." He stopped. The date on the newspaper was 1983. He looked at Adaeze. "I sat on the road and read that paper 3 times, he said. "I thought I was going mad." Chuka said, "So you didn't know you were gone 20 years? "I swear on my father's grave," Emeka said. The 3 of them sat with that. Outside, a dog barked in the distance. Inside, nobody moved. "There is something else," Emeka said. He pulled up his sleeve. No wounds, no scars from war, no sign that he had lived through anything. Just smooth skin the way it looked at 26. Adaeze stared at that arm for a long time. She had aged 20 years. She had buried her youth. She had raised a son alone. And this man, her husband, sat here, not a single day older. She stood up and walked to the bedroom without a word. She did not slam the door. She just closed it quietly. And sometimes, a quietly closed door is louder than any slam. The next morning, Mama Ngozi came before sunrise. She knocked this time. Adaeze opened the door, looking like she had not slept. The old woman walked in, sat down without being invited, and folded her hands. "Bring Emeka," she said. Adaeze went to the parlor where Emeka had slept on the floor. He was already awake, sitting up, staring at the wall. She looked at him once, then said, "Mama Ngozi wants you." They sat in front of the old woman in the pale morning light. Mama Ngozi looked at Emeka for a long time. Then she spoke. "There is a place in that forest near Aba," she said. "Old people know it." She paused. "My own grandmother told me." She looked at Emeka directly. "Ebe Abuala Mo," she said. "That place belongs to the spirits. Those who enter it, time stops for them. They do not age, they do not die, but they also do not return the same." Emeka leaned forward. "What do you mean, not the same?" Mama Ngozi was quiet. "Some men came back from that place in the old days," she said slowly, "in my grandmother's time." "What happened to them?" Adaeze asked. The old woman looked at Adaeze with something like pity in her eyes. "They could not stay," she said simply. Adaeze frowned. "What do you mean could not stay?" Mama Ngozi looked down at her own old hands, wrinkled, spotted, worn by years. "The place does not release you fully," she said. "It only lets you visit. After some time in the real world, months, sometimes a year, it calls you back." The parlor was very still. "It calls you back," Emeka repeated. "And the men who resisted the call," Mama Ngozi said, answering before anyone asked, "they went mad." She stood up then, straightened her wrapper, and looked at them both. "I am telling you this so you do not waste the time you have fighting each other," she said. And she walked out. The door closed behind her. Adaeze did not look at Emeka. Emeka did not look at Adaeze. They both stared at the empty chair the old woman had just left. Sometimes the truth does not set you free. Sometimes it just shows you the exact shape of your cage. Chuka had heard everything from behind the hallway wall. He came out slowly, and his face was not the face of a man who had just received good news. He stood in the middle of the parlor and looked at Emeka. "So you will live again," he said. It was not a question. Emeka looked at his son, this tall young man he had never known, never carried, never taught. "Chuka?" "No," Chuka said. "Answer." Emeka was quiet. "If what Mama Ngozi says is true," Chuka said, "then you will live again." He laughed, short and dry, with no humor in it. "I grew up," Chuka said, his voice steady. "I asked Mama every night where you were. She told me you were a soldier. She told me you are brave. She told me you would come back." His voice did not break, which was somehow worse. "I stopped asking when I was 10, he said, because I could see what the waiting was doing to her." He pointed at Adaeze without looking at her. "Look at her," he told Emeka. Emeka looked. Adaeze sat still, her face unreadable, her grey hair catching the morning light. "She is 44 years old," Chuka said. "She looks 60 because she carried everything alone. And you walk in here looking like my younger brother." "Nami," Emeka said softly, "my father." "Don't," Chuka said sharply. "You have not earned that from me." He picked up his bag from the corner. "I am going back to Nsukka," he said. "Chuka," Adaeze said. "Mama, I love you," he said to her, "but I cannot be in this house right now." He looked at Emeka one final time, his father, who looked younger than him. "If you are still here when I come back," Chuka said, "we will talk. If you are gone again..." He did not finish the sentence. He just walked out. The gate opened and it closed, and Emeka and Adaeze were alone for the first time in 20 years. The silence between them now had a different quality. It was not empty. It was full of everything they could not say.
They sat in that silence for a long while. Then Adaeze spoke. "I am not angry with you," she said. Emeka looked at her. "I was angry for 15 years, she continued. Then I got tired. I raised your son. I kept your name clean in this village. I did not remarry, though people begged me." She paused. "Not because I was sure you were alive," she said carefully, "but because I was not sure you were dead." Emeka reached across and placed his hand on hers. She did not pull away, but she did not hold it back either. "Adaeze," he said, "I am sorry." "For what?" she asked. "You did not choose this." "I know," he said, "but I am still sorry." She looked at their hands, his smooth and young, hers worn and real. She pulled her hand back slowly. "I cannot be your wife the way I was before," she said. Emeka looked at her. "I am not the 24-year-old girl who kissed you at that gate," she said. "I became someone else while you were gone." "Someone stronger?" "Someone different," she corrected. "I do not need saving anymore, Emeka. I do not need a husband the way I once did." "Then what do you need?" he asked. She thought about it. "I need you to know your son," she said, "before you go." "Adaeze, because Mama Ngozi is right," she said plainly. "You will go. And I'm not going to spend whatever time you have here crying over it." She stood up. "You can stay in the guest room," she said. "The house is big enough. But we will not pretend it is 1963. She went to the kitchen to start breakfast. She did not look back. And Emeka sat there, in the morning light, in a house that had lived 20 years without him. And he understood something fully for the first time. That love does not always mean togetherness. And sometimes, the person you come back to has become someone you have to meet all over again. He stayed for 7 months. In those 7 months, Emeka did 2 things every single day without fail. He visited every family in Umuna he knew, and he wrote letters to Chuka and Nsukka, long ones full of everything a father should have said over 20 years. Chuka did not reply to the first 3. He replied to the 4th. By the 6th month, Chuka came home for a weekend. He and Emeka sat outside under the mango tree and talked until midnight. Nobody knows what they said, but Adaeze, watching from inside, saw her son laugh at something Emeka said, and she closed her eyes and thanked God for at least that much. On the morning of the 8th month, Adaeze woke up, and something felt different. She went to the guest room and opened the door. The bed was neatly made. His army jacket was folded on the pillow. On top of the jacket was a note. She picked it up. It was short.
The way Emeka always wrote. The pool started last night. I did not want to frighten you. I am not dying. I am just going where I must go. Tell Chuka I am proud of him. And Adaeze, you were always the strongest person I knew. Not because you waited, but because you did not stop living while you waited. Keep living, E. She folded the note. She pressed it to her chest. She did not cry. She went to the kitchen, made herself tea, and sat at the table. By the time Chuka called from Nsukka that afternoon, she told him calmly. He was quiet for a moment. Did he say anything about me? Chuka asked. He said he is proud of you, Adaeze said. Another silence. Good, Chuka said. Good. The army jacket stayed on Adaeze's chair for years. The village talked about Emeka Okafor for generations after. Some called it a curse. Some called it a miracle. Mama Ngozi, when asked, always said the same thing before she died. Ebui bo. It was both.
The moral. Some people are not meant to stay, but they are meant to teach you something before they go. The woman who waited did not win because her husband came back. She won because she did not stop living while she waited. And the man who returned young learned the hardest lesson of all, that time does not pause for love, it moves. And the bravest thing you can do is move with it. Onye shefuoya onweya, ofuoya. If you forget yourself, you are lost. Igbo proverb.